Is Meghan Markle calculating, or is she starting to sound a bit crazy? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we're going to be talking about the latest revelations from Meghan Markle's new interview with The Cut, which is New York Magazine. In the feature, Meghan shared a bit about her new show Archetypes. She talked about Harry, the royal family, her children, and honestly, throughout the whole interview, I just read through it thinking, does the interviewer hate her? Because there was just a lot of badness in it. So I'm going to go over a couple of the red flags that I saw and some of the things where I was just kind of starting to get like, do Meghan and Harry's own PR people hate them? Because I feel like every time they open their mouth, they're saying something that either doesn't make sense or is clearly something that is not true. And it's constantly damaging their brand, not helping it. But if you guys haven't been here before, hello, my name is Brittany, and on this channel we talk about everything related to royals. So that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. We'll do it all right here. So if you want to hit that subscribe button, that would be fantastic. And yes, I do have a review of Archetypes coming as well, and I have another video related to Archetypes that I was planning on finishing editing last night, but I just actually got back from Poland, so I was too tired to edit. So that will be coming soon as well. But like I said, I wanted to go over this because I read through this article, and at the end of it, I was like, I really feel like this article did Meghan Markle absolutely no favors. And it legitimately started me thinking, you know, she's not really sounding, she's sounding a little bit unhinged anymore, I think. And that's just my opinion. Perhaps that is too harsh. That is totally understandable. But looking through it, there were just a lot of red flags, warnings, and as well, one of my favorite bits was Meghan Markle basically confirmed that what Tom Bower wrote in his book about how she treated the Vanity Fair interviewer was entirely correct, because she did something exceptionally similar to this woman interviewing her for this article. And so I find that fascinating. But let's just dig into this a bit. So kind of the title of it is Meghan of Montecito, which I think is just kind of a sign that, yeah, the Sussex thing ain't working anymore, or Meghan knows that the Sussex thing is boop, boop, out the window at some point. And I think there are growing calls from this interview and others, just people going, when is the royal family, when is enough enough? You need to pull the titles. And I think they are getting very, 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 very close to that point. But I think they're trying to make sure Harry and Meghan have enough tree or enough rope to kind of hang themselves, where it becomes evident that the public outcry is more about pulling their titles than it is about anything else. And I think we're definitely getting there. So this, and the pictures throughout this article as well, I will say, in my personal opinion, I don't think are the best. My favorite one is of her kind of lounging back in the dress, which is Chanel. It's tweed. I do like Chanel tweed to a certain extent, but most of Chanel stuff is just not my favorite. I prefer Christian Dior when it comes to clothing. Anyways, but I just thought she was trying to pull off these very like gravitas deep looks, but I think Meghan is a rather shallow person. And because there's just not enough behind her facade, I don't feel like her trying to have these probing looks actually works in the slightest. And also it's clear that one of the first pictures we see, where I honestly think she kind of, the expression almost hinges on kind of evil looking, and even the interviewer at one point called her expression devilish. That is literally a quote from the article. And it's also clear that Meghan was copying Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge's 40th birthday photos. And Catherine looks 1,000 times better than Meghan does in them. And I think that's just very, very clear. Catherine looks exceptional, while as Meghan just is trying to, I don't know what the expression she's going for, but honestly, it just does kind of, it's not a good expression, let's just say. And honestly, again, it leans kind of more into the devilish aspect that the author was talking about. But let's go over a little bit of what we saw here. So kind of one of the first big things that kind of hit the news is that Meghan is apparently going back to Instagram, and then she immediately backtracks it. That's not a great thing to do in an interview, is saying, yes, I'm doing this, especially the way she does it, and then backtrack it going, no, I'm not. So it says, Meghan silenced no more, looks around, making sure nobody who would be is listening in. Then the top secret drop. I'm getting back on Instagram, she says, her eyes alight and devilish. Literally a quote, a light and devilish. And then it goes on to compliment some of her stuff on Instagram, saying she had 3 million followers. I'm not sure the exact count of her Instagram before it went down when she kind of married into the royal family, not to mention the fact that she got a huge boost from dating Harry. I think I would guess that her Instagram account, because she was kind of good at it, was probably at the most 500,000 before the news broke that she was dating Harry. So a lot of her quote unquote success on Instagram to a certain extent came from the fact that she was dating Prince Harry. That's where it came from. And the success of their Instagram Sussex Royal also came from the fact that they were connected to the royal family. So again, it's just kind of a weird thing there. And she drops this other nugget, which I would love receipts on this, because honestly, I don't know where she's getting this. She says, why would I give so she's talking about the royal rota and how royals give their pictures, their family pictures and stuff to the royal rota so they can report about it. And it's something that they've done for years, and Meghan just didn't want to do any about it because she said she didn't want to give the people who are calling my children the N-word a photo of my child before we can share it with the people that love my child. So, but I don't know if, I have never ever heard anybody using that terminology when it comes to her children. And as well, when you think about it, you know, her kids, they're both gingers apparently. And it's like, again, it's like a huge question mark. It's like, who said this? I've watched royals very closely. I've never heard anybody use that term when it comes to her children. Maybe like, but in some recesses of the internet. But I think the problem with Harry and Meghan is that they've taken the recesses of the internet, you know, all the negativity that's out there, and they've shoved it as anybody who disagrees with them, they're all like this, which is just fundamentally not true. And so she talks again in this kind of first little bit about making it to the other side of the drama, but it's like, but she hasn't. Meghan constantly rehashes the royal drama, constantly. And as well, I think Meghan Markle is the catalyst for most of the drama. Because this drama, if you've watched royals, yes, royals have their little tiffs and stuff, but none of it existed like this before Meghan Markle came into the picture. This whole level of additional grievances, drama, all this stuff came from Meghan. Meghan was the catalyst. That's it. What I think was interesting about this article is that really the author kind of made subtle swipes at Meghan, and she was sycophantic at the same time. But you look at this and go, well, honestly, you're actually kind of making her look bad. So this section says, though she has been media trained and then royal media trained, and sometimes converses like she has a tiny bachelor producer in her brain directing what she says. At one point in our conversation, instead of answering a question, she will suggest how I might transcribe the noises she's making. She's making these guttural sounds, and I can't quite articulate what it is she's feeling in that moment because she has no word for it. Is she just moaning? At this stage, post-royal, there's no need for her to hold back. She's flinging open the proverbial doors of her life. As any millennial woman whose feminism was forged in the grid girl boss era would understand, she has taken a hardship and turned it into content. That's weird. It's weird. Like guttural noises, like why are you making noises to your interviewer? I've interviewed people and never had anybody, I've had people cry on me or become emotional on me, but I've never had anybody start going, you know, guttural noises while I'm interviewing them. Like that's just bizarre. It's just weird. And again, that the author puts this in there, either that means she didn't get enough for something else, or there's honestly a subtle dig going on at Meghan Markle, and she bought into it. And it's just, again, who let her do this interview? Who on her PR team let her do this interview? She doesn't come out of this well in the slightest, and it goes on. So I thought this was interesting, is that they called them the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan. So not Prince Harry, because it should be the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan. But that they didn't use Prince, I think, again, shows. And she goes into this when kind of Harry kind of enters the scene a bit in this article, that she didn't know how to greet him. And what has really bothered me about Meghan is that Meghan is playing off American ignorance when it comes to royals and the royal family. She knows Americans don't totally get it, and she thrives on that. She thrives on that misunderstanding. That's part of the reason why I started this channel. Is like, I wanted to give people a deeper understanding of why certain things go on. Because you get Meghan's version, which is not the truth. It's half truths, it's lies, it's manipulation. And I just wanted people to understand that there are protocols in place. There's our hierarchies in place for a reason. And it's not just limited to the British. It's not like the British were being deliberately mean to Meghan, saying, well, you're the sixth. I mean, nobody said this to her directly, granted. But nobody kind of went to her and said, well, you're the sixth in line to the throne. I'm sorry, but you don't have that much power. But, you know, they subtly did that. They did not give her everything she wanted because she is not crucial to the line of succession. She's not crucial to the future of the monarchy. She married the sixth in line to the throne. Yes, his father will maybe one day be king, but then it will be his brother, then it'll be his nephew, then it'll be his great nephew. Harry will never see the throne. And so I think that was kind of interesting that, you know, because Meghan can't be Princess Meghan, Harry can't be Prince Harry. At least that's how I read it. So I thought it's too, as we go on. So I should have explained this before. I'm just kind of going through the interview, you know, page by page. And there was this one bit, and she says, the author writes, but she already covered this on her interview with Oprah. So she was going over some of the twists and turns it took them to get from Canada to California. She reminds me with a firm smile and a wave of her hand that signals it is time to move on. To me, it's just me reading into this. And granted, I do have an anti-Meghan bias. I'm not a fan of hers, but a lot of it is because I feel like she treats people, the monarchy, and a lot of, you know, Brits very, very poorly. And that's a lot to do with my negative opinion of her. But I think it's kind of honestly sounds rude and dismissive here. It's like, I've done this, move on. And perhaps the author wasn't explicit that she was rude, but honestly, she does something else that I also find a bit rude. And I feel like she's kind of, you know, she wants to dominate this conversation like she does most things. And we'll see more of this here in a bit. And she goes into this long, detailed explanation about how they came to their house in Montecito and how it was just something that, you know, it was a dream house and it was out of their price range. And then all of a sudden it was, and they saw it and they had to have it. They hadn't even walked inside yet. Meghan also confirmed through this interview, well, I guess Harry was really the one, that they have massive problems with this house because they were fixing pipes and other things. I mentioned in my video about how I think Harry and Meghan are burning through money, that part of the problem with having a massive house, because my parents had a house that was quite large for a couple years, is that it's a massive amount of money just for upkeep. And they had to replace every single pipe in their house because it was mostly like the hot water pipe, I think it was, because the manufacturer had done something wrong, and not wrong, I should say exactly, but there was something wrong in the manufacturing. So the pipe didn't work correctly. And so they had this pipe and they had to replace all of them in their house. And that meant holes all over the house. I would walk home and there's more holes in their wall. Eventually they redid the whole thing. But as the pipe would break and they'd have water damage, they'd have to do rigmarole. So it sounds like Harry and Meghan are having a lot of upkeep on this house. And I'm not surprised. And I bet you that's been a huge money drain for them. And again, because they picked a house that was too large. But Meghan, again, I think through this interview sounds very kind of arrogant and out of touch with the average person. It's like, no, honey, not everybody can afford a $15 million mansion. And you kind of bragging about it is just, I don't think just works all that well. And what the author said too was that the Montecito house is the kind of big that startles you into remembering that unimaginable wealth is actually someone's daily reality. It evokes a classic Tuscan villa, a Napa vineyard, and a manicured Beverly Hills country club decorated with careful, considered coastal tones for a casual air. A home equivalent of billionaires dressing down in denim. So this again tries to emphasize that Meghan and Harry are extremely wealthy, but I doubt, I would bet again that they're wearing their money, they're burning through their money with this house. And so I just found that bit very, very interesting, and it does not connect people to Meghan. And she's not wealthy as somebody like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, or there's millions of, not millions I should say, although I'm not sure how many billionaires there are in the world, but real billionaires live very differently than Harry and Meghan. They have multiple houses. Harry and Meghan live like billionaires on a millionaire's salary, not even like hundreds of millionaires. Like maybe they'll make 100 million, maybe, but they'll burn through a lot of it too. And so this gives me the impression from reading this, they're leading a billionaire's lifestyle when they don't have that budget, when they don't have that level of money. And that is deeply problematic. So there was this bit about her, and I thought it was so weird. She says, even if she and Harry have stepped back from their royal duties, Meghan is still very aware that people see her as a princess. It's important to be thoughtful about it because even with the Oprah Winfrey interview, I was conscious of the fact that there are little girls that I meet and they're just like, oh my God, it's a real life princess. But her ambitions for herself and the little girls who look up to her are more than to marry into a position. I just look at all of them and think, you have the power within you to create a life greater than any fairy tale you ever read. I don't mean that in terms of you can marry a prince one day. I mean that you can find love, you can find happiness, you can be against what could feel like the greatest obstacle, and then you can find happiness again. It's like, oh my gosh, like the level of narcissism is insane. And also, I don't think, unless she tells people, who would know she's a quote unquote princess, when all she is Princess Harry. She has no claim to a princess title in her own right at all. Like, the real princess lives in Florida. Princess Madeline of Sweden lives in Florida with her children. Princess Leonor, Prince Nicholas, and Princess Adrienne. They live in Florida. They are real princesses and prince, sorry. So like, what is she talking about? Like, they are real and they live a normal life as far as we're aware. They don't make the news. Madeline's not going to the UN and declaring, I'm the Princess of Sweden, ergo you must listen to me. Because to a certain extent, like Meghan, she's a spare. She's the king's third child. I'm not sure exactly how far she is down the line of succession now, because she has her sister, her 2 children, her brother, and his 2 children. So she's like, I think maybe 7th or 8th in line to the throne now. So again, like, the real princess is not making a fuss. And why is everybody making a fuss that she's a princess unless she's telling them all the time, or somebody else is telling them all the time, she's a real princess? And what really has, one of the things that's really bugged me about Meghan is that she refuses to admit the only reason anybody cares who she is because of who she married. She married her influence. So her fairy tale is like kind of real in a way. It's like she's telling them not to believe in a fairy tale. Yes, she is actually to a certain extent a fairy tale because she met and married a prince. And she's telling them that, well, you can have your own fairy tale. Well, like, why don't you? Why don't you have your own fairy tale? You're still trading off your title. You're still trading off your husband and his influence. You can't do it. Why are you telling other people to do it? That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. She is the one who is obsessed with the title. She can't make her own dream a reality without marrying a prince. And she's telling others to do it, which I find just incredibly disingenuous. Then Harry enters the picture. This conversation is bizarre. Oh, let's start over here. It says, Meghan Harry, or H as she calls him in anecdotes, or my love as she refers to him when he's standing in front of her, as he is now in navy blue athletic shorts, a t-shirt, and no shoes, has appeared from the house to say hello. I find this interesting. So she calls him H in anecdotes, but my love in person. I just find that a bit weird and sounds a bit manipulative. So he's just H when she's talking about him and he's not there. But all of a sudden when he's there, it's my love. And I feel like the my love thing is a bit new. Like, we've heard this again in somewhere, in the Serena Williams interview. All of a sudden it's my love, my love, my love. And it's just a little weird, I think. And not that it's necessarily bad, because other people obviously say that to their loved ones as well. But again, it's just that thing where it's just Meghan, like, the radar just screams fake when you think about her. And so I don't think this little bit helps her at all. And then it does so Harry does explain, we're fixing all these things, the pipes, but that's a whole story in itself. Again, Harry explains exasperated. Again, that house is more than they bargained for, I think. And this just proves it. Proves my theory. Yay. That's always fun. But this is where the conversation, and I'll post the conversation, the text in the box like I've been doing before, because honestly, this conversation is hard to follow. This author is not, I don't think, very good, because there's another section in here where it's just confusing and people are reading different things into it. And Omid Scobie tries to backtrack it, But again, this is the fault of the writer not explaining it, but we'll get there. So this says, the day before, while Meghan was on the photo shoot for this issue, Harry had been left to his own devices, he tells me. You were gone for like 10 hours yesterday, he marvels to his wife. Tell her the first thing you said when you got back last night, he says, turning to me. She said, I'm not a model. I was like, no, you are. Of course, you can be a model. And she's like, I'm a mom. And it's like, you can be both, Harry says, earning himself so many points. That's the most asinine conversation I've ever heard. Not to mention the fact, of course you can be a model and a mom. There's a lot of models who are moms. Adriana Lima, Alessandra Ambrosia, Giselle Bundchen. Like, there's a lot of women who have been models and moms. Like, you're not, honey, you're not breaking any barriers here. You're not doing anything anybody else in history has not done. Women can do more than one thing at the same time. Apparently Meghan can't. And Harry has to tell her that she can do more than she apparently thinks she can. But honestly, again, and throughout this whole, like, her pictures and everything, honestly, to me, none of them are all that flattering. And the modeling is a reach. I don't think she can really model that well. I think she was actually better before she met Harry. She was a bit better. I think that Wild About Harry interview spread with Vanity Fair was actually much better than this. When it comes to pictures and poses and stuff, I just didn't think any of this worked well. And she had this black dress and she was kind of lounging, and she actually has done the exact same pose before she married Harry. And so it just, to me, just didn't really work. The two run Archwell from their shared home office, specifically from 2 plush chairs placed side by side behind a single desk, facing into the room like thrones. Most people that I know and many of my family aren't able to work and live together, Harry says in passing as I take a peek at their command center. He enunciates family with a vocal eye roll. It's actually really weird because it seemed like a lot of pressure, but just feels natural and normal. Harry, what's natural and normal is 2 adults who are in a loving relationship being able to spend time apart. Not together all the time. Not working together side by side like that. Like, even people who are genuinely in love and have been in love for years probably can't work together. There's nothing wrong with that. And that because you have to be side by side does not mean you are in a close relationship. Because what I get about Harry and all this is that it's becoming more and more evident to me is like he doesn't even understand what a healthy relationship is. And what Harry and Meghan have to me in these snippets sounds like a very controlling and very toxic environment and relationship. This does not sound like you don't need to be on a throne in a room together. I mean, I know that's the author's description, but again, that doesn't even make Harry and Meghan sound good. The thrones just seem over the top, inappropriate, and Harry and Meghan again seem very disconnected from real people here. And this description does them no favors. What I also like about this is that it highlights how little Harry and Meghan have done in a lot of stints. It says, so far there's been little consumable content out of Archwell. The first announced project was a behind-the-scenes docuseries about the Invictus Games, which has yet to see daylight. Meghan has been working on Pearl, an animated series about a 12-year-old girl who steps into her own power by traveling through time to meet important women across history, when Netflix axed it. There's not much you can do when a company and a division changes their slate, she says. And there's also not much you can do when, even if they think the project is great, the media will report it as though it was only my project. Meanwhile, Archie has had a leadership change as the company moves forward. So clearly there's trouble behind the scenes. They're clearly, I mean, she's basically admitting it. The author is saying it. They've had a change in leadership at Archwell, and Meghan here again just doesn't sound good. Well, they, reported it as my project. Well, it's like, but it was your project. It was you and David Furnish. It was not Harry's project too. And maybe perhaps, there was other people on the project, but it was kind of, we were led to imply by you that it was going to be basically kind of about you. That's basically what you said. And Meghan has a very, very, very high opinion of herself because she considers her reality TV show a historical documentary. She says, but Meghan explains there's a difference between a historical documentary and a reality docuseries. Honey, you're not that important to history. You're really not. You're actually mostly a pain in everybody's butt. Like, really? That you just start talking about your historical documentary about their love story. Like, does anybody really want that? Does anybody, except for her fans, does anybody really care or want that? Again, it goes to that thing where Meghan is a hero, an icon in her own mind. And honestly, I don't think the history books will have much to say about Meghan Markle unless she is the catalyst for the demise of the monarchy. Then she'll make the history books not for a good reason. And I just think like the level of narcissism to think that that your series is so critical that it should be considered historical shows you the level of delusion and belief of grandeur that she has. So guys, when I read this section, I was like, oh my gosh. This Allison who wrote this piece just confirmed that Tom Bower's book is pretty much true. This, I feel like, changes everything in a way, even though it really doesn't. It's so subtle, but it just tells us so much, again, how Meghan manipulates people who are interviewing her. Because this, to me, is so apparent, and it establishes a pattern. So it says, your eye contact is good, Meghan says suddenly. You're like looking into my soul. I stammer out an apology. I feel it. It's good. I'm like so excited to talk. This is pretty much what Meghan did to Sam Kastner, who interviewed her for Vanity Fair. They sit down. He describes specifically that she looked sexy. She lounged herself and she goes, I like your stutter. And it's a way I feel like that she uses to disarm the people who are interviewing her. And it also seems to kind of startle them and kind of puts them off their game. And it gives her an element of control. So that really that little bit, it might not seem much, but it just goes to show that what Tom Bower put in his book was actually correct. Not just to mention the fact that Sam Kastner later came out and tried to kind of dismiss some of what he said to Tom Bower. And obviously, if Meghan's doing this to Allison, her other interviewer, she does this. This is what she does. And again, it's that element of control. She's manipulating people, kind of throwing them off, so it gives her a chance to start dominating the conversation with what she wants. And there's just this weird thing too about her and the connection to Montecito, which I don't think is very close. And not to mention the fact, I think people kind of keep their distance from her, because she talks about going to some child's birthday party and being in a bouncy house with a 1-year-old inside or something, which is kind of weird. And the mom didn't want to come in because she didn't know if she was allowed to come in. And it's like, what? So it says, these days they are getting back out there together. Recently, Meghan says she took Archie to a birthday party for a classmate. Everyone was surprised they showed up. I was in a bouncy castle and I saw this 1-year-old inside. I was like, where's your mom? And this mom out on the outside goes, oh, I'm here. I wasn't sure if I should come in. She laughs. I was like, do you need your child? Of course you can come in. What? That's just weird. Like, and why would, I think bouncy castles are big and they've been known to be blown away. Why would a mother put her 1-year-old child in a giant bounce house by herself or himself? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, I don't understand. And what is this supposed to show? That Meghan was in the bouncy house alone with a 1-year-old? Was she there alone with Archie? Was she there alone with Lila? Like, what is she talking about? And again, it goes back to this thing of, does this author hate her? Does the author not like her? Because this, like, why would you share this story? And this goes on, and like, why are they sharing these particular things that just don't even make them look good? So I won't read all of this, but it talks about how Harry's now a polo player. Well, isn't that a hoot? He went from being a counselor of state, so that means he can replace the queen. I mean, he still technically is. And a prince with a huge platform to a polo player. Bravo, Harry. I'm sure that's always what you wanted to be when you grow up. They also talk about how they can't go outside And I get it, they are famous people, but famous people go out all the time. They generally try to live their lives to the most part. And, you know, going outside is part of that. And apparently they can't, so they have to go to like particular people's homes. And this one woman who's from QVC, they go to her house. That was where the photo shoot happened. And you get the sense again that Harry and Meghan lead very isolated lives. And it's a self-imposed isolation, I believe. Because if they were in the UK with the aristocratic set, they protect their own. Harry and Meghan could live with their children relatively normal lives within the safety of the aristocracy. They would protect them, they wouldn't squeal or anything like that generally. I mean, there are always exceptions, but Harry, Catherine and William spend a lot of time with Zara Phillips, Peter Phillips, their families. They spend a lot of time with each other. So Harry and Meghan sound incredibly isolated because apparently they don't want to go out unless they can control every aspect of what they're doing and who they're interacting with. And then they started talking about Frogmore Cottage and how apparently they still had things left there, and that part of the trip in June to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee was kind of to sort of move out and sort through things. I thought that was really weird. And it goes to show again, it's like, okay, the monarchy should just take the house back. If they're not going to live there, if they're going to, you know, clean out stuff and stuff, just be done with it. Just sever the apron strings, just get them out of that place. I just think it's silly that they're still, because a lot of the rumors is who paid the balance for their house renovations. If it's been Charles who's paid it, the monarchy just needs to take the house back and just say forget it. I mean, I know they still continue to lease it to Harry and Meghan, and it seems like it's maybe on a year-by-year contract, but at this point, just get rid of them. Because they're just a drain on the system. And she talks too, which I thought was really funny, about she found these $30 Bowden pants that she had. And I was like, honey, I didn't even know something less than $200 graced your tookish. Because every pants we've seen her in since, like her jeans have been like $260, $300. And so I didn't even know you own anything that's $30 or under. That's, you know, bravo, Meghan, you're expanding your horizons. The author, once again, also brings up kind of a point of contention. She brings up, she says, public funding of the royal family is a conflict as old as the Queen Mary Bandeau tiara Mary wore on her wedding day. I know they're trying to tell us that, you know, she's still a princess, but honestly, that just reminds me of the tiara tantrum that she threw. So again, why put that in there? That doesn't help her case. And depending on who you are, that just kind of reminds you, she wore a tiara one time and she threw a tantrum about it. So what is the point of this? It's supposed to be, really, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be supporting archetypes or archetypes, but I don't even think it does that. I think it just, again, makes Meghan sound just strange. Like, she's honestly starting to sound weird. When she mentioned this, I was like, oh my gosh, she was acting as a duchess. And that was, I think, part of the issue is that she can't be a normal human being. She has to be on. So, I mean, of course, she's a normal human being, but you get my drift. So this says, how did it get so hard? She had tried to play royal. I was an actress, she says. My entire job was tell me where to stand, tell me what to say, tell me how to say it, tell me what to wear, and I'll do it. And I'll show up early. And I'll probably bake something for the crew. And again, that self-aggrandizing thing she has to do is just so obnoxious. Like, oh, come on, honey, would you really make something for them? Like, let's just be real. But it also, I think, highlights that she's really kind of daft. She's just basically saying, well, I'll stand where somebody tells me to and I'll say what they want me to say. Well, why couldn't you do that in the monarchy? Like, you could not do that. So that's not the issue. The issue is that you wanted to be the star and you thought you were better than everybody else. And that's an issue because monarchies are all about hierarchy. They all are. All of them are about hierarchy. This is not a surprise. This should not be an interest. They've been that way for thousands of years, ever since the monarchy existed. It's been a hierarchy. You trying to supersede that does not work. And you say, well, I'm just an actress. Well, are you telling us you're dumb? Like that, I feel like is kind of what you're telling us is that you have no brain cells because you'll just parrot whatever somebody tells you to do. You had a whole team. Why couldn't you do that? There was a whole team around her at the monarchy. She couldn't do that? Really? Again, Highly doubt it. Every movie about an American woman who ends up becoming a princess has a pivotal scene in which she thinks she's doing the job correctly just by being herself. But then some older royal gives her a speech about duty and decorum. I cite specifically The Prince and Me. She hasn't seen it. Yeah, that would have been really helpful. That would have been a very key tutorial to have in advance of all this. She says, not quite sarcastically, but the delivery is a sentence with a steel rod in it. By her own analysis, her problems stem from her being an American, not necessarily a Black American, she explains. Her desire to ask lots of questions and never be involved with something she couldn't totally have her hands on seemed to violate an unspoken social norm. But that's what you married into. The institution is bigger than you. It's not about you. And that's, I think, the issue we're seeing here. Meghan wants it to be all about her all the time. But a monarchy, it's not all about you. There's a bigger picture here. There's so many other things going on here. This idea that it's all about you, it's all about what I want my personal stamp on. I'm not going to do anything unless I can bet every single thing. Even if it's like, well, the queen wants you to do X. Well, but I haven't verified it yet. You know, that was her attitude. And that's just, again, not conducive to being a team player, not conducive to being a member of a monarchy. That's just, again, not how it works. And again, I mentioned the hierarchy thing and she talks about this a bit, but she also talks and repeats the instance where she talked about in South Africa that she's just existing. We're just existing. Well, honey, there's a lot of people just existing all over the world. There's nothing in the bylaws of humanity that says you have to be happy. It's so juvenile to think you have to be happy all the time. Nobody is ever happy all the time. People just exist sometimes. There are periods of highs, there are periods of lows. Those who are most mature, those who are most successful in life figure out how to manage the lows and manage the highs. Her saying, well, I'm not happy. Well, who cares? Sometimes you're not happy. Sometimes life doesn't go the way you want it to. That's just life. And so again, these kind of stupid comments, I feel like do her no favors and make her just sound exceptionally distant from the rest of humanity. And again, she is rather rude to her interviewer here once again, because the interviewer is talking and Meghan are chatting about how, you know, she believes that other royals were able to make money and while being quote unquote royal and she wasn't. I disagree with this because basically if you are a senior working member of the royal family is your job. That was what Harry and Meghan were. She's talking about Beatrice, Eugenie, and others' relationships who go to the big royal functions, so jubilees, distributing the color, a couple of other services throughout the year. And they also have a couple of side charitable endeavors, but they do not work for the royal family. If they go on charity events, they're not being paid for it. What I think really happened is that we saw this in the Tom Bower book. The royal family specifically set up a charity for Harry and Meghan because if they set up a foundation, Harry and Meghan would have a lot of control over its finances. And they wanted an alternative outside sources managing the finances of their charity. That's why they set up a charity for them instead of a foundation. I think the royal family was genuinely worried about how Meghan Markle would use money, how Harry would use money under her influence. And were deeply concerned that it would set them up for a huge liability. So they just said no. And I think that was the smart decision to make because obviously we've seen Harry and Meghan have made some kind of, I would say, not necessarily shady, but I think there's a lot of questions on how they're making their money and what they're willing to do to make their money. They seem to have no scruples, and that's a really big issue. And so I think the monarchy was smart here. But she's explaining this, and the interviewer asks her a simple follow-up. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that, you know, they weren't allowing you to do this half in, half out thing you want? And this is what Meghan does. Why do you think that is? She says right back with this side eye that suggests I should understand without being told. The author then goes through a list of, you know, possible grievances Meghan could have, you know, because she wants, like Oprah, for her to draw her own conclusions in the most negative way possible. But again, I feel like this is rude. It's like, well, why don't you tell me? You tell me what you think. And it was just kind of this aggressive. And we saw this when Meghan was an actress. There's this interview of her. And she like takes this guy's cards. He's trying to interview her. She starts being rude to him because she thinks that at some point he sees somebody else he wants to talk to. And she just grabs his cards, starts kind of teasing him, messing with him, you know, kind of making the whole thing uncomfortable. And I feel like I see similar veins here too. She's making the interviewer uncomfortable. She's making her draw conclusions that she doesn't necessarily want to. And again, I don't feel like it makes Meghan come off well. And I think this vagueness that she's trying to do no favors, because people can read into it whatever they want. Meghan, once again, tries to rewrite her own story, which doesn't make sense, saying that she was really nervous about going to the Lion King premiere when she was yucking it up the whole time and had her husband pitch her to Bob Iger. Again, doesn't make any sense. And like, you were thrilled to be there. We could all see you were thrilled to be there. And this is what really upset people as well. She says, I had just had Archie. It was such a crucial chapter. I was scared to go out. A cast member from South Africa pulled me aside. He looked at me and he's just like light. He said, I need you to know, when you married into this family, we rejoiced in the streets the same way we did when Mandela was freed from prison. Of course, she's no Mandela, but perhaps even telling me the story is a mode of defense. Because if you are a symbol of all that is good and charitable, how can anybody find you objectionable? How can anybody hate you? What? Like, I honestly don't think anybody told her that. I really don't. Some people got messages from people in South Africa who said they don't know what she's talking about. And again, like, I hate to say this, but honestly, you know, Angela of Liechtenstein was a woman of color, and she married into the Principality of Liechtenstein, and she doesn't go traipsing around, you know, calling herself groundbreaking. And honestly, I just don't see anything supremely groundbreaking with a woman of color marrying into the royal family, because I believe it would have always happened. It just was, you know, love is a tricky thing. Not everybody falls in love with, you know, it's not like a movie now where, you know, you have to have all the diversity picks and everybody connected together in a particular way. People fall in love in unique and interesting ways. And so I just feel like this idea that somehow what Meghan did, just by simply marrying Harry, somehow broke these huge barriers. I just don't believe, because I don't believe the barriers were there. You know, people fall in love with who they fall in love with. And so this idea that was mandated somewhere that it had to be a person of color, you know, I don't know if I'm making much sense, but I just feel like her belief that somehow she made complete and utter history by marrying into the royal family, I think is a huge stretch. I think at the end of the day, the history books will kind of write it out, because it'll be kind of like, yeah, a woman of color married into the royal family, and then that's it. I don't think it'll be a big deal. I really don't. And so but that's her claim to fame. That's her only thing. So she has to constantly harp on it. So they have this bit where Meghan, I guess, apparently gives a bag of some granola bars and maybe a sandwich to this homeless guy. Again, it felt very performative, and she was doing this interview. So it's like, well, do you do that all the time? And somebody pointed out as well is that some people who saw Meghan at the school picking up Archie in this instance did a double take, as if Meghan doesn't come and pick up Archie very much from school, and so they were kind of shocked that she did, which I thought was really interesting. And she also says, again, another lie. It's aggravating. She says, earlier in our conversation about her goals for the life she's creating here, she remarked upon how if Archie were in school in the UK, she'd never be able to do school pickup and drop off without it being a royal photo call with a press pen of 40 people snapping pictures. Sorry, I have a problem with that. That doesn't make me obsessed with privacy. That makes me a strong and good parent protecting my child. So she's throwing the Cambridges under the bus. Of course she is. What else could she do? But that doesn't happen to them every day. That only happens to them, you know, when the children first went to school. Twice. So we have George and then George and Charlotte. We haven't even seen Louis do it. So why are you saying that, you know, why are you throwing the Cambridges under the bus for trying to connect them with the public and have a couple of pictures taken when they're on their way to school? Like, that's just so inappropriate, so rude. So I forgot to mention this part earlier. It says, Harry said to me, I lost my dad in this process. It doesn't have to be the same for them as it was for me, but that's his decision. So this was written in a confusing manner. So a lot of people are saying that, you know, Harry's lost his father. And I could see how I had to read it twice, because it's like, are they talking about are they talking about Meghan's father, Harry's father? It's not clear. Apparently they were talking about Thomas Markle, not Charles. But again, it's written not in a great way, so it does confuse people. Like if you're transcribing an interview, you kind of try to help them with their language so it's clearer what they're saying. But again, it's like they've damaged their family relationship so much that, you know, you do wonder, because it's like Harry doesn't seem to have a relationship with Charles anymore. And it's just, again, incredibly sad. And Scobie had to come out and go, no, they were talking about Thomas. They were. Because again, Meghan can't, and Harry, I feel like they have diarrhea of the mouth now. They can't stop talking. And every time they open their mouths, it just gets worse and worse. And I don't mean that to be rude. I just think they don't think well before they speak, and they are just so excited to have the attention that they say the first thing on their mind, and it just doesn't make a ton of sense. But overall, I was just very unimpressed with A, the way this was written, and B, how Meghan comes across. She comes across as arrogant, narcissistic, disconnected, you know, kind of self-aggrandizing, you know, self-obsessed, you know, thinking that she's Nelson Mandela, that she's a saint, like all these sorts of things. And it's like, I just wonder, I mean, most people have described you as calculating, but as time goes on, you're kind of hitting more on the crazy scale than calculating scale. So guys, let me know what you think about this video. I realize this went long. I just thought that this article really highlighted how poorly I think Harry and Meghan are doing when it comes to the public perception, that they can't read the room. And this is another article that just shows that Meghan is way out of her depth at this level of scrutiny, because she just can't keep it together. She can't stop lying, apparently, or manipulating, misleading, and it's just coming across as completely bad. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much for watching, and got more content coming this week because I am home. All right, bye.